Good morning. On the Mediterranean coast of Israel, halfway between Carmel in the north and Egypt in the south, in the 1st century there was a little town named Jaffa. It was a seaport, a nice place to live. You'd have sea breezes and warm summer sunshine. Anyway, there lived there a Christian disciple by the name of Tabitha or Dorcas, but unfortunately she died. Now, the congregation were most upset about this, and Peter wasn't very far. He was in the city of Lydda, which was quite close by, so they brought him over fairly quickly, and he resurrected Tabitha or Dorcas. Now, the question arises here, although of course Dorcas was loved greatly, why was she resurrected and not other widows or women of prominence in those days? Well, the answer is in Acts chapter 9 and verse 36, and it says it was because she spent 150 hours a month in the preaching work. No, of course it doesn't. It says here, Peter went back with them straight away, and on his arrival they took him to the upstairs room where all the widows stood around him in tears, showing him the tunics and other clothes that Dorcas had made when she was with them. In verse 36 it said that Dorcas never tired of doing good or giving in charity. My point here is that the early Christian congregation was a vibrant community. It was filled with individuals of all different characters and abilities. They all brought something different to the congregation. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the Apostle Paul says this: "The particular way in which the Spirit is given to each person is for a good purpose. One may have the gift of preaching with wisdom given him by the Spirit. Another may have the gift of preaching instruction given him by the same Spirit. Another the gift of faith," and so it went on. Some had the gift of healing, the power of miracles, prophecy, and so on. Everybody was different. They all brought their own talents and gifts to the congregation. They were made up of this wonderful, colourful collection of different characters. Now, in the book of Romans chapter 14, it says this. Verse 4, "It is not for you to condemn someone else's servant. I serve God, you serve God." We can't condemn each other for, unless we do something really terribly wrong. It says that whether he stands or falls, it's his own master's business. He will stand, you will stand, I will stand, because the Lord has power to make him stand. If one man keeps certain days as holier than others, and another considers all days to be equally holy, each one must be left free to hold his own opinion. So that's the 1st century congregation. So let's come to today. And Grace very kindly sent me excerpts from In Search of Christian Freedom by Franz. And he starts off with 2 verses. One is Thessalonians 5:21, "Test everything, hold on to the good." 1 John 4:1, "Don't always believe everything you hear just because someone says it's a message from God. Test it first to see if it really is." Now he goes on to talk about the Walsh case, which happened in Scotland in 1954. And Fred Franz and Hayden Covington went over for this court case. So the court was asking questions and Fred Franz gave the answers. Now, what I didn't know was that while Nathan Knorr was organizing the Watchtower Society, Fred Franz was the one that dictated doctrine. Just one man dictated doctrine. So here he is in court in 1954. So the court asks him, talking about the various doctrines which are published by Watchtower, the question is the members' acceptance a matter of choice, or is it obligatory on all those who wish to be and remain members of the society to do? The answer is it's obligatory. You have to accept what they say. So the court goes on to say, well, supposing somebody doesn't agree, then what? Well, he'd be disfellowshipped. And what would that mean? Well, Franz is absolutely certain on this point. Only Jehovah's Witnesses are going to survive the end of the world, and if someone doesn't agree with what Franz, had written in a pamphlet, he'd be disfellowshipped and he would die at Armageddon. The court was stunned, as you can imagine. It's a horrific witness if Franz was trying to witness for God in this particular court case. So the court comes to Pastor Russell's idea of 1874 being the date for Jesus' second coming. Now, it turned out it was a miscalculation, and Franz accepts that it was a miscalculation. But the court asks, well, supposing somebody belonging to the society at that time didn't agree with 1874, what would happen? Oh, well, he couldn't be part of this society. So the court says, well, so he has to accept false doctrines and false prophecies to be part of this society. And Franz says, yes, you have to stick to it. So why? Well, let's see what he has to say later on. And if any of you want details of this, I'll put my email below and I'll try and send you some details. He says this: when a change comes, it should come from the proper source, that is, the head of the organisation, or, if you like, it had to come from Franz, the governing body, that's him, not from the bottom upwards, because everybody would have ideas and the organisation would disintegrate and go in 1,000 different directions. Our purpose is to have unity. So the court asks, is it unity at all costs? And Fred says, unity at all costs. Is that what the Bible says? No, we have to test it. What I didn't realise at the time was that if I had said in 1975 that I didn't believe Armageddon was going to come, I mean, it might have done because nobody knows when it's going to come, but supposing I had said, well, I'm not absolutely certain it's going to come, I would have been disfellowshipped. Even though it turned out it didn't come. It was one of Franz's ideas. Nobody was allowed to contradict him, so these ideas take a hold. So beware, viewers, of what Watchtower comes up with. It will change. You are supposed to follow any false prophecy they make, but please don't. But obviously we have free will. We can associate with them if you want, but in your own mind. It's important to test the scriptures for yourselves and stand before God on your own feet, which we will, as Tabitha and Dorcas did. She felt that doing good works was her way of showing her Christian faith. We all have our own ways of doing it. So let's celebrate the different characters who are Christians and love each other for those different ways. But thank you for watching.